Hello and welcome to Surveyor Says, the podcast from the National Society of Professional Surveyors. Each week, we bring you fascinating guests that are involved in the profession of surveying. We cover a lot of ground, including Table A Talk with Gary Kent, Point of Order with the NSPS Joint Government Affairs Team, Future Focus, highlighting current and future leaders of the profession, and everything survey-related in between. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast, and hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Surveyor Says. Hello and welcome to another episode of Surveyor Says. My name is Tim Burch, and today we're going to do a little bit different of an episode because I kid them. We'll kid about talking to the feds, but they are part of the federal government, but it's a little bit different side of it. And this is also a different side of what surveying is in a little bit different aspect. Today we're talking to the U.S. Forest Service, and my guests today are Gino and Paolo, right?
Yes.
And Forrest Decker. And actually, Forrest and I go back quite a ways from our days in the private sector in Northeast Illinois. And he's moved on to much bigger and brighter things. And along with Gino, they're here today to talk about the Forest Service, what a surveyor and a survey technician is in the Forest Service, and the fact that, unfortunately, they're like the rest of the surveying profession. They need surveyors, and really to be able to hear the fantastic opportunities that the Forest Service has. We'll get into some of what the positions that are open and such. But Gino, let's start with you. Bottom line is the Forest Service surveyor. Where are you guys? I mean, I assume you guys are nationwide. And what's a bit of what your day-to-day operation is like?
So we are nationwide. I cover California, Hawaii, Guam, the Pacific Islands, which is a beautiful area.
Oh, you poor guy. That's horrible. Absolutely horrible.
I'm still waiting for them to send me to Guam and Hawaii, but that's okay. I'll cover California as well. But daily operations, at least here in California, is going out and locating boundaries. Finding out where does the forest begin and where the private ends. When we do that, we find other interesting things such as trespasses, encroachments, which that's when it gets a little more exciting, but that's just the tip of the iceberg for what we do daily. I mean, we may have to locate a road that has been washed out, or just finding property corners and old township corners, section corners, things like that are from the 1800s. It gets really exciting. It's a little different than working in the city.
Oh, I bet. So I'm assuming there's a little bit of crossover with Bureau of Land Management as well. I mean, some of the things that they do. I mean, you guys kind of run in the same circles sometimes.
Here in California, we work with BLM, Bureau of Land Management, exclusively. I mean, we work with them daily almost. They are the keepers of the land surveying world, I guess you can say, or they wrote the book. And it's great working with them. They have a huge knowledge when it comes to surveying in general, but the cadastral side of it is where their specialty is. So getting the opportunity to work with them daily or very often is a great opportunity.
Very good. Forrest, what corner of our universe are you stuck in these days?
I'm currently down in Atlanta, but I've only been here a couple of weeks, so very green and new to a very green part of the country in Atlanta. Previous to that, I was a regional surveyor for Region 4 of the Forest Service, which is located in Ogden, Utah. The really important thing to kind of recognize here is, the Forest Service manages 193 million acres of federal property, right? It's not Forest Service land. It's land that's held by the citizens of the United States. So we use the laws and rules and regulations to manage all that. There was 156, I think is the number, about one per Forest Service unit across the country, professional land surveyor.
Wow.
I checked last week, we're only at 82 currently in the Forest Service. So roughly half strength. 32 million acres of that 193 million were in Region 4. We had about 26,000 miles of both land boundary, which is public and private, and administrative boundary, things like, wildernesses and all these other legal definitions, which creates some of these trespass issues, like Gino said, and marking and posting these boundaries and managing all that data is kind of something that all the Forest Service surveyors do on a daily basis. So, we're heavily involved into the boundary side of things. Depending on where you're at, right? I mean, you could be in the swamps in Florida all the way to, Alaska to New Hampshire, to the desert. It's really incredible territory that we work in. We do work hand in hand, like Gino said, with the BLM. We're a separate, completely different agency than the BLM. We're in the Department of Agriculture, tree growth, all that kind of stuff. BLM is land management, interior. So we have a whole different set of rules that we operate by. But, fundamental to the core of land management, of course, is surveying. And we need surveyors. We need quality people from entry level all the way up to, experienced journeymen. There's opportunities within this agency across the country. So, we're really excited to be talking to you, Tim, about what the Forest Service does. And it's complicated. We get involved with a lot of different things, like Gino said, with title claims, mix of federal law, mix of state law, all these really nuanced issues that we never encountered when I was in the private sector with you. Keeps you challenged every day. I don't look back that when I left the private sector to come into the federal service, I'm thankful that I work in this agency every single day because it's always a challenge.
Well, what I find interesting, hearing really you guys being on both sides of the country, this is a national agency, lands throughout all of the states. So I'm sitting here thinking about, okay, Gino, you're dealing with public land, the public land survey system, primarily out west. I'm thinking now with you, Forrest, down in Georgia and the whole East Coast thing, and with me being here in Maryland / West Virginia now, and the colonial states and how land is done here. Really, I guess it depends, doesn't matter what your background in as far as and your expertise is in boundary retracement, what have you, from public lands to the eloquent pieces or to the colonial pieces. You guys cover it all. That you really need surveyors and good practitioners in all of these systems because you cover so many different states, so many different situations.
And not only do we cover it, but we give employees an opportunity to move to different areas to try it out. Maybe from the East Coast and never worked with the PLSS system, and you want to try it out. Well, you have an opportunity to do a detail and try it out for 3 months, see if it's something that you're interested in. It's tough to just jump into a new job and new challenges and then expect to do that for the rest of your life or until you find another job. Doing details is a great opportunity. And I understand the whole big bad government thing that we hear often, but being a surveyor for the government is a completely different opportunity. You get to be that neutral party. And most government agencies and government jobs, you don't get to be that neutral party. If the Forest Service is incorrect, we get to let them know they're incorrect. If it's the private sector, we get to let them know. That's the great part about what we do. In California, well, Forrest was saying that we're about half staff right now. California, we're about a third staff. We currently have 5 employees for all of California, and we're looking at hiring 11 new employees. So we're pretty skeleton crew right now.
Well, and that's why I'm glad to have this conversation with you all, because not that we don't need more and more surveyors and technicians in the private sector. I mean, obviously, across the board we do, but to me, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing is that obviously you fill a very, very important role with our public lands, working with the BLM. And I guess that's one of my questions, is that I would have to think that in going about your work, like you said, you're coming across encroachments, you're coming across various things that are there. How is it? And Forrest, I'll look to you first for this answers. How is it with? Do you cross paths with hunters? Do you cross paths with hunting grounds? I mean, people incorrectly think that they're on one property, and we can get into. I've got another question for you that's going to follow up with that, with the all of the new handy dandy apps that these hunters and surveyors are using to determine public lands and hunting lands. But I mean, is this some of the stuff you guys come across in really helping delineate who needs to be on which side of the fence?
Oh yeah, absolutely, Tim. We handle trespass and unauthorized use on a daily basis. When I was in Region 4, we had over 1,000 plus trespass, unauthorized use claims across that we were aware of, right? And as any surveyor knows, when you go out there, mark a mile of line, you're probably going to find another one or two, particularly in remote and rural areas. So, the National Forest has very limited authority to convey or exercise, rights that people think they have. We have to follow the acts of Congress, what Congress tells us what we can and cannot do. So it's very rigid in how we have to handle a lot of these trespass and encroachment items. But, we're following an act of Congress to get to a point where we can resolve that, right? We're not trying to be, you're trespassing on National Forest System lands, get your stuff off, right? We're trying to find a way to resolve that within the rules, authorities that we have. Kind of, leading into your second question there, with all these apps, we're seeing increasing trespass and claims of rights just based on GIS, right? And when you get outside these city areas where GIS can be fairly tight in city lots, when you're out in the middle of, Nevada, say, where I used to be part of, 200, 300, 400 feet off of where, true location, and it's not unreasonable. And that's even Forest Service data that, we're constantly updating, much less, unknown source data that's compiled by Esri or someone like that. So yeah, we are seeing a great deal of increased issues, so to speak. In fact, one of our recent litigation cases was solely driven by GIS data. So.
Well, and that's something that NSPS is trying to figure out how to approach without seeming like, we're trying to be heavy-handed with these apps and the GPS capable phones, GIS data that's coming in on the phones, and a lot of the hunting and parcel apps that are out there. Bottom line, this is why individuals like you do what you do. You're land surveyors. You're trained, educated, and licensed to do these things. And this is part of the reason we have the equipment we have the body of knowledge we have, and not just an app that says, oh yeah, I can hunt here. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are dealing with it. I mean, that's it is being recognized as a little bit of a problem, because I think it comes down to public awareness that, not saying that there wasn't encroachment, for generations before, but putting the power of GIS in people's hands, now they feel like they've got a little more information, than they're going out and being a little bolder on some of this stuff. And it's, I imagine it's got to be a little bit of a challenge for all of your teams to go out there and be able to convince the public that, oh, by the way, no, the line's here. You need to be on the other side. We're on our side.
It's not just the public, though, Tim. To be fair, we give talks to district rangers and forest staff personnel.
Oh, good.
These very, very same topics, right? Be wary of GIS. Be wary of your, handheld GPS unit that you can turn upside down and still get a position on, right? The accuracy is not there. So it's, to be fair, it's not just the public, it's the Forest Service as well. And with turnover and, with all these vacancies, we're always trying to stay out front on that educational component, but it doesn't always filter to the ground level.
Well, you're exactly right, because that's, I guess, yes, to be fair, I'm hearing stories of survey crews, unlicensed technicians that are going out on behalf of licensed surveyors, and they're using these apps to help them. And they're not always that big of a help. So, okay, I'm going to switch gears, and Gino, I want to come back to you for a second, because you're in a part of the country that's had a pretty big spotlight on it for the last several years, and I'm referring to the forest fires and all of the devastation that's going on. I mean, the current fire that's going on right now. I heard the number of how many square miles it's already decimated. I guess in your part of your job, how does in dealing with these situations come into your daily routine of things? I mean, how often are you guys involved with helping know where these fires are at, and how does that impact the job you want to do on a daily basis?
So we have teams that go out and they help find the boundary. They're using GIS to create these maps to figure out the acreage. And one of our surveyors would go on to those teams with the GIS, which is great having a surveyor on that team. But when it comes to the fires, our biggest issue with fires is the tractors destroying monuments. So they have to put out fires. I understand that. And they can't always be careful and look for where a stone was or whatever monument it is. So they run them over. And there's other teams that go on that have a couple surveyors on them, and they look for tractor lines that may have destroyed monuments so that we can replace them as quickly as possible before they end up being completely lost, and then we're dealing with other issues. Now, the good thing I will say about fires is when we can go in there and survey the line after a fire, we're using GPS because there's no tree canopy. We can knock out several miles of line pretty quickly instead of doing a traverse through it. So there's benefits to everything, and you got your pros and cons.
Oh, exactly. Well, and just, I guess, as a side note, NSPS is working with the California Land Surveyors Association and a couple of the other surrounding states that monument preservation and monument, basically remonumentation efforts, and trying to basically get these forest fires really somewhat classified from a surveyor perspective under FEMA emergencies, to where, and I didn't realize until this past year or so in dealing with the California surveyors that, bottom line is, coming in after a fire, that 12 to 24 inches, depending on where you're at, of that top layer has to be removed simply because of all of the fire material or the carcinogens that are in all of that needs to be torn out. Well, guess what? That's where our monuments usually lie. And for somebody to come through, especially in down significant property lines in some of these neighborhoods that are these little towns that get blown away, burnt away, that they come through and clean them off, and all of a sudden now all evidence of any kind of occupation or monumentation and occupation are gone. So trying to work with the feds to try to basically reestablish, that's something we're also trying to work on as well. So my hat's off to you guys that are out there trying to trying to retrace something that's absolutely been burnt off. That's incredible to think that hey, this is part of the story that people don't hear, and part of what you're having to go in behind and figure that out.
Let me talk about prevention a little bit, Tim.
Oh, there you go. Yes, please.
Yeah, because we can preserve those monuments and we can mark boundaries before these fires occur. So with the recent infrastructure bill, there's a national wildfire crisis strategy. We're going to be treating 20 plus million acres over the upcoming next decade. Mechanical treatment, whatever it is, controlled burns, however that functions. But surveyors have a critical role in that. We don't want to burn across private property lines, right? Sometimes there's common agreements and the boundary line's not as material. But really, the work that we see for surveyors, and a lot of it is going to be this prevention. So preserving monuments, finding all those old monuments and preserving them, reestablishing them, but also then preventing these catastrophic wildfires that we all see on our TVs, which are just horrific and, due to numerous causes. So I think my goal is let's focus on that positive, that we can, mitigate this calamity that we see, and also do a public good by preserving these corners and maintaining boundaries.
Okay, so let's talk. Okay, so let's talk about being a surveyor, a survey technician in the Forest Service. That's, like I said, that's part of the big reason we're talking about this today. But I got to tell you that just hearing your roles, and let's dig into it a little bit deeper. It sounds to me that if you're a licensed surveyor, survey technician, somebody that really truly loves boundary retracement, this could almost be the perfect job for you. And like you said, Gino, you could try different details, different areas of the country, but that sounds like that's part of the biggest part of this job is going to be doing a lot of this prevention and retracement work.
Yeah, so being a surveyor in the Forest Service is a little different than the private sector. I worked in the private sector from 1999 to 2014, because I've only been with the Forest Service for 8 years now. And the reason why I wanted to go to the Forest Service was because we had a contract, an IDIQ contract with the Forest Service, got the opportunity to get out there. I wasn't getting hit by cars or nicked by cars in Los Angeles, and I really liked it. When the job opportunity came up, the Forest Service called me up, or one of the guys I was working with that was in the Forest Service, and said, "Hey, there's a position that's opened up. We would really like you to apply." Well, okay, I would love to. I love this type of work. And I have not regretted it a day. It's been amazing. It's a great opportunity to see a lot of this country, to work in areas that are so remote and relaxing. Every day is not a relaxing day. You may be hiking through some wild rose bushes or blackberry bushes or something like that doesn't feel too good, but it's still better than any day out in LA.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. All right, Forrest, you're a little bit longer veteran of the Forest Service. Tell me let's hear some of what are the benefits? What we're talking about going to work for the Forest Service. What are some of the benefits of being in civil service? What can somebody that is applying for that job, what can they look forward to as far as benefits and travel and opportunities within the Forest Service?
Yeah, there's opportunities across the nation and across the board, Tim. A lot of the positions are designed for what's called a career ladder. So you may come in at a certain experience level and you have a pathway to get to a certain level, to journeyman level, so to speak, as far as a surveyor or a survey tech. We've given training and education and time off for survey techs to go and get schooling We've paid for a lot of their schooling. Now, these are all budget dependent decisions, usually at the local level. But we've really grown a lot of surveyors in-house from our tech ranks. There's a huge opportunity, like I said, across the region, wherever you want to work. Gino said, you can do 120-day details to kind of get a flavor for doing, you don't even have to do surveying. You could go and do something else. You could be like in recreation. You could be in other land ownership adjustment or any of these other things. Our goal is, as management, and I'm in management, is to support our people, allow them to grow, and put them in a position where they can be highly successful. I think we've done that pretty well. We can always be better, right? We can always improve. Training is going to be a big one. That's another benefit. We authorize a lot of time for training. We do a lot of difficult things, mountains and rivers and everything else have a great deal of danger. We've had crews encounter, grizzly bears. So there's a lot of training, right, involved, A, for safety, but B, for surveying as well. So then on top of that, the federal government's got a really highly competitive salary, time off. I came into the government. I took a pay cut to actually come into the government. But you know what? I had time to raise my kids. I was able to take off and go to their baseball games and do all those kind of things, go to dance for my daughter. And I've never regretted it. And like I said, there's a lot of growth potential if you want it. But we have a lot of surveyors because they love where they're working, love where they sit, right? They've been there for 40 years, they just love it. So eventually some of them are retiring. That's some of the numbers. The other part is that, we have these opportunities now with, like I said, the infrastructure law. There was another act, though, that was passed with the Great American Outdoors Act, which is deferred maintenance. The pandemic brought a lot of people out. They couldn't go to movies. They couldn't go out to eat. They're like, let's go recreate on the national forest system, right? So, we're doing a lot of even topographic and tree work and stuff like that for campgrounds to improve those. To handle the large numbers that we're seeing, trails, just a huge breadth of things. And, the benefit of working for the government, and like Gino said, we're neutral, but we're really doing a great public good to improve all these recreation facilities to, make sure that we maintain boundaries and ensure that people's rights aren't trampled on. Along the boundary line. So really exciting times and a lot of opportunity as far as the eye can see, at least until I'm retiring, which is at least 10 to 15 years away. So.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you what, continue on just a little bit then. Tell us about, you've got basically a kind of a career fair hiring session coming up with the Forest Service. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there's a national hiring event upcoming. The first job's going to be advertised on usajobs.gov, August 5th through the 15th. There's hundreds of jobs that are going to be out there, half of which will be surveying. So it's a national lands event. The other components are going to be like land ownership adjustment and special use, which are lands professionals. So a lot of times in the 1905, when the Forest Service was created, lines were just drawn on a map. So, we try and consolidate ownership, convey out of land that doesn't make sense to be a national forest system parcel. And of course, surveyors on the tip of that. So we do a lot of land transactions as well. Special use could be roads, energy projects, pipelines, we're involved in all that. Surveyors, we need to know where and what and how and when, right? So we're involved in all that. So this whole event is kind of stemmed to this great need that we have with additional funding coming from these congressional acts to really support these national efforts to protect our public lands and invest in them for the next generation.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you said that about as far as some of these congressional acts. I mean, that's something that NSPS has been involved with for several years. One of the big ones is the Flare Act, and knowing where all the public lands, where they're at, what they're valued, and who better to help establish all of that than the surveying community, and we're going to be a big part of that. And I'm glad you guys came on, because this really speaks to the big side of things. And yeah, Gino, I agree with you about the scary big bad government, but bottom line is that we've got to keep a handle on where all of this land is, where all of the use is, and somebody's got to do that. Somebody's got to measure that. To me, it's no different than police, fire protection, national defense, whatever. This is something that needs to be done, and this is a great group of people to get this stuff done. So I appreciate you sharing this with us. We'll put all of this information. We'll have some postings on the NSPS social media coming up. It'll be in news and views. We'll little more about it and make sure and broadcast it out. So Gino, I want to go back to you for just a second, because just listening to the type of work you're doing, and I guess coming out of the pandemic, and what some of this generational things that we're seeing as far as the differences in surveyors. Really, it just sounds to me like someone that is getting into surveying, getting into a different type of career. There's a lot of flexibility and a lot of opportunity here to really go out and have some adventure in addition to having a job.
It really is. If someone who's just getting out of college or high school or whatever, I would suggest college, because I recommend that for everyone. Get into it. It's a phenomenal opportunity. We worked with firefighters in the summertime when I was working in Southern California, and we'd teach them how to do basic surveying, how to go out and look for corners, what to look for, things like that. And these firefighters are big, bad, tough guys. I mean, they really are. They're the ones that are jumping out of helicopters to put out some of these crazy fires in California. And they weren't too excited about doing land surveying over firefighting. And by the end of the 2-3 months when we have them, they're asking us how they can apply. Being able to work just Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday, because we have a flexible schedule, is great for those who are wanting to have a family or have a life outside of work. In the private sector, I remember working long weeks because time is money and these projects aren't going away. Federal government's a little bit different. We have time to go out and look for corners thoroughly, where in the private sector you don't. You still need to, you just don't have the time for it. So it's wonderful. If you can get out there and just try it. There's volunteer programs where you can even try it out if you're really getting into it and it's new for you. We would love to have you, especially, California, we would love to have you come and check it out. I think if you're new to it, you're really going to enjoy it. You get paid to go 4x4ing and hiking through the forest. It doesn't get much better than that.
No. And like I said, coming out of the pandemic, I think overall people's priorities have changed, and okay, they're fine. There's something to be said for working 70-80 hours a week and making a lot of money. But to Forrest's point, that you get to watch your kids grow up, you get to be involved with various things, but yet the job you're doing is very fulfilling. And boy, I tell you what, for I think a big part of the generations that are coming out of high school and college now, I think this is a great opportunity. So we will do what we can to help spread the word, because I think you all are onto a great part of what surveying is all about, and where we need to be. So, Forrest, any parting shots here?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, Tim, and Gino coming along with it. We love what we do. I love surveying. I grew up doing it. My dad was a surveyor. And it's different now. We've got those high barriers of entry with, and that's a whole other argument for another day, right? But working for the American people, in doing things for them that will have a lasting impact well beyond the time that I'm probably walking on this earth. It's really fulfilling and really exciting that we have this opportunity now. So I would just say that if anyone does have any questions, you can email me. Federal hiring can be, a little bit of its own maze, but I can put you in touch with people that can help you with that. I may not be able to do that myself if you're part of the hiring process, but I can find the right person to give you assistance. So Tim, I can, happy to give my email out. You can post it on the website, and we'll put you in touch with whoever you need to be put in touch with.
We will. We'll put all this in the show notes. We'll put this together. Absolutely. Any help that you can provide. I mean, bottom line is there's a great opportunity here, and we'd hate for anyone to get discouraged. The hiring process anywhere, even at your Amazon warehouse, is going to be a pain in the butt sometimes. But anything we can do to help ease that burden, absolutely. I would also be amiss if I didn't give a little shout out to Elizabeth Schlieff. She's become a very good friend through these past few years. We worked on some things together with both of her land surveying and her lawyer hat on a case in Louisiana, and she's become a very very good resource, a great friend to get to know about all the stuff that goes on at the Forest Service. And we're just so happy that she was able to put us in touch with the two of you gentlemen to really talk about this opportunity today. So, Gino, any parting shots for you as well?
I just want to thank you so much for this opportunity. This was a great experience for me as well. Not just the opportunity, but for the Forest Service, but for me. So thank you so much, Tim. I do appreciate it.
Well, I thank you both for taking time out of your busy schedule and out there. Like I said, I'm now that I kiddingly say that I'm retired from the private sector. I look now to what you guys are doing as far as boundary retracements, and especially some of the places you get to go and the experiences you get to have. I hate to say it, I'm a little bit jealous now, but you know what? We make our own bed, so it is what it is. So I tell you what, I think if you guys don't mind, I'd like to put a revisit to this someday down the road. Let's talk a little bit more about the Forest Service, how we're doing on the hiring, and what more, just more things we can share with the general public. So if you guys wouldn't mind, I'd love to have you back sometime.
Love to come. That would be great. Thank you.
All right. Well, that'll wrap it up for this week on Surveyor Says. Well, once again, thanks to the Forest Service. Thanks to Elizabeth for putting us in touch with these two fine gentlemen and talking about this. We will post the job fair, the hiring fair that's going to be going on August 5th through the 15th. And that is at usajobs.gov. We'll get you all that information. And wherever you subscribe to your podcast, please hit us on the subscriptions, hit us a like, and we'll bring you some more great stories just like this in the coming weeks. Thank you. You've been listening to the Surveyor Says podcast, brought to you by the National Society of Professional Surveyors. If you have any questions about today's episode or any other topic, please email us at info@nsps.us.com, and we are here to help. Visit our website, nsps.us.com, to learn more about our association, the programs we administer and support, our sustaining members, and information about future episodes of Surveyor Says. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as our podcast host, Podbean. And remember, It's a great day to be a surveyor.